I've been to film school, I've made short films, I've watched hundreds of movies, and I've been thinking for years, are the Oscars a legit measurement on whether or not a movie is good? The answer, obviously, is no. There are plenty of great movies that never even get nominated for an Academy Award. But I'm going on a quest to determine my favorite movie of all time. I'm going to start by watching every Best Picture winner since the first Academy Awards. So let's turn the clocks back and enjoy. This is the Movie Time Machine. The first Academy Awards took place in 1929. It was a year marking the end of the Roaring Twenties and entering into the Great Depression, with the infamous stock market crash coming in October of 1929. Movies with sound were a new novelty, with the first movie with synchronized sound coming in 1927 with The Jazz Singer. The first ever Academy Awards didn't even feature a Best Picture category. It was called Outstanding Picture. The nominees were Seventh Heaven, The Racket, and Wings. Wings took home the Oscar, so that's what we'll be watching today. Wings is a silent film. It's the only silent film to ever win an Academy Award, and something I have never watched before. It'll be a new experience for me, and I'll have to let you know how I feel coming out of it. My first inclination is to turn it off, because I don't want to read title cards for the next 2.5 hours. But I'll set my elitist pro-sound opinions aside, grit my teeth, and get through this thing. That being said, here's the log line for Wings. With World War I afoot, David Armstrong and Jack Powell join the military with an eye toward flying American fighter planes. They leave behind Mary Preston, a local girl who's in love with David but committed to Jack. Dispatched to France as newly minted pilots, the men take to the skies in one of the war's climactic air battles, and as frantic Mary longs for the safe return of both men, one pays the ultimate price for his bravery. Notable cast members are Clara Bow, Charles Rogers, Richard Arlen, Jovina Ralston, and Gary Cooper. Wings was directed by William A. Wellman and produced by Paramount Pictures. Now this will officially be the oldest movie I've ever watched, but old doesn't necessarily mean bad. At least I hope it doesn't mean bad, because if I'm wrong, I'm in for a long couple of hours. Alright, let's buckle in and watch this bitch. The 100-year-old Top Gun? This movie kinda ruled. Let's go over it. The film starts off with Mary and Jack working on a car. It's obvious Mary's in love with Jack off rip. She flirts with him, asks for a kiss, and Jack totally shows her up. But to be honest, I wouldn't kiss her either with that chopped haircut. I thought this was a pretty cool shot of David and Sylvia sitting on a swing. Not entirely sure how they got it. David is in love with Sylvia, and Sylvia is in love with him. Jack, however, thinks Sylvia is in love with him, so we have a little love triangle thing going on here. David and Jack both join the military. There's a German guy trying to join, Hermann Schwimpf. They press him, but he shows them his American flag tattoo. Jack goes to see Sylvia before heading off to boot camp. She's making a locket for David, but Jack doesn't know that and he takes the locket for himself. Mary gives Jack her picture and he puts her in the friend zone immediately with a pat on the shoulders. David has a different goodbye. His mother is proud he's a soldier. His dad seems unimpressed. Oh, and his dad's in a wheelchair. A good bit of inclusion for this 1927 film. David also kisses his mom on the lips. Very weird. Let's continue. And they're off to boot camp, where I'm sure nothing notable will happen. Our boy Herman gets some sweet chin music for being German. But again, he shows his American flag tattoo for a second time, and everyone's friends again. I don't know about you, but if somebody punches me in the face immediately after meeting me, we aren't friends after that. There's a lot of punching in the beginning of this movie because there's a whole boxing sequence where I think the actors are actually throwing real punches here. David gets his shit rocked by Jack, but they make up and get along shortly after. In their living quarters, Cadet White imparts some wisdom on Jack and David, and then goes outside to crash his plane, never to be seen again. Here's a cool VFX shot. Easy shot to do today, but I have no clue how they did it in 1927. I don't know much about VFX back in those days. In the middle of the night, Jack and David are woken up to do a patrol. We've never seen them fly a plane before, and they're immediately getting thrown into battle. For a film almost 100 years old, the flying stuff in this movie is actually kind of incredible. I have no idea how they got some of these shots. Cameras weren't small and portable back then, so I don't know how they got some of the stuff in the air. I have to assume it wasn't in the air at all, and everything was shot on a soundstage. Jack and David end up in a dogfight with some Germans, specifically Captain von Kellerman of the German army. David gets into some trouble and his machine gun jams. We think he's toast, but for some reason, von Kellerman decided not to kill David because David's gun jammed? They called it chivalry among knights in the air. I don't know. The German captain von Kellerman just says, "Too easy," and fucks off. Meanwhile, Jack is separated and taking heavy fire. They destroy his motor and he prepares for a crash landing. There's obviously... Get down. Get down. There's obviously no chivalry between these knights because the Germans keep strafing trying to kill Jack. Luckily, there's a British trench nearby where he crash landed and Jack takes refuge. Months pass and now Mary's a medical truck driver near David and Jack. She hits a guy with it, so I guess we're making women are bad drivers jokes. The guy hits on her, as you do when someone runs you over, and his commanding officer yells at him to get back in line. While Mary is busy getting hit on, there's a German bomber ready to make a run at a small town where munitions are being kept. As the bomber gets closer to the town, Mary drives her medical truck into town, after the streets have already cleared for people to take cover. Mary gets stuck in the bombing run and hides under her truck. As things get demolished around her, she sees two American planes headed towards the bomber. It's Jack and David. David takes down one of the German fighters and Jack pursues the bomber. Jack, with his pinpoint accuracy with his gun, kills the gunner and both pilots, taking down the bomber. For their bravery, Jack and David are receiving a Medal of Honor, and for some reason the guy giving them out kisses Jack and David on the neck. Very weird, let's continue. Fast forward, they're in Paris, where they're rounding up all the fighters for one last battle. In the club where all the soldiers are hanging out, there's an incredible dolly shot that I did a little research on. It's apparently an inverted overhead rig on a rail, that's why it looks like the camera is moving through the tables. Jack is drunk as hell and gets infatuated with Bubbles for some reason. Mary searches for him, she finds him with another woman, and gets jealous. Jack is fucking plastered and doesn't recognize Mary and keeps saying, "No war, just Bubbles." He clearly can't handle this liquor. Mary goes to the bathroom and meets a creepy old woman who is knitting in the bathroom of a club. Actually, you know what? Go off, Queen. The old woman encourages Mary to steal one of the dancers' dresses. Meanwhile, Jack is still going on about the Bubbles. Mary gets into a fight with the other woman. Jack breaks it up by, you guessed it, mentioning Bubbles again. Someone must have laced his shit because he is tweaking hard. Fast forward to when Jack isn't drunk anymore. Him and David go to the front lines. David is thinking he won't make it back, so he tells Jack to gather his things for him and take them back to his mother. conversation escalates and they talk about girls, specifically Sylvia and Mary. They both say they're in love with Sylvia, so Mary is getting the shaft on this one. David rips up Jack's photo of Sylvia, rightfully pissing Jack off. But there's no time for horseplay, as they say. The Germans are approaching and they have work to do. They take off in their planes and set off to fight the Germans. An enemy squadron cuts off David and Jack. I don't know why they only ever send them out alone together, but whatever. To protect Jack, David hurls himself into combat. He knocks one out of the sky, then another. David's getting cocky, but he's in danger. The other two Germans are closing in on him. Jack is nowhere to be found. He's far ahead, targeting two balloons. He takes them out, but anti-air cannons are shooting at him. Jack just now realizes that David's missing, and Jack abandons him and heads back towards home. David, very much still alive, crash lands into a pond where a ton of Germans close in on him. He swims away, narrowly escaping death again. But he's not safe yet. He's alone behind the enemy line, but we'll come back to that. A German fighter flies over the base camp and drops a note saying that David has been killed after crash landing, while Jack is safe in base camp. Jack is depressed after abandoning his friend, but he goes out and gets back in the plane anyways to square things up for David. A true American hero, battling depression to do your job, the real American dream. Driven by a mad desire to avenge David, Jack goes behind enemy lines alone, like an idiot would. Meanwhile, large-scale battles ensue on the ground. Jack, still in the air, targets the German reinforcements. He's a madman, truly. He's so far behind enemy lines that they might as well give him German citizenship. On the ground, Americans reach the German trenches. They're gaining some ground. Jack, still in the air somehow, provides some support for the ground troops. He mows down some German machine gunners and allows the Americans to advance into the German trenches. We revisit David now, who is muddy, crawling through a swamp. He sees the German fighter planes, and I've seen Top Gun Maverick. I know what he's about to do. He makes his move, stealing a German fighter plane. He makes his escape successfully, taking down one of the German fighters in the process. My concern here is how are the Americans going to know that David's plane is actually David? There's no radio in the planes or anything, and it has German markings. I'd be shooting that shit down. The battle is over, the Americans have won. Nothing better than a little war propaganda. On their way home, David sees Jack's plane above him, but my concerns were valid. Jack thinks David's a German fighter plane. Jack shoots at him. David pleads for him to stop, but obviously Jack can't hear him. Jack keeps on David's tail, shooting at him all the way. David takes heavy fire and gets hit. David crashes into a building and Jack could not be happier. Soldiers carry David out of the plane, maybe saving him. Never mind, he's gonna die. Jack rushes to see his kill, only to find out that it's David. He's surprisingly not as distraught as I thought he'd be. Kiss. Yeah! David dies, Jack cries, McDonald's fries. Jack carries David's body surprisingly easy to a cart where they take it away. R.I.P. David, it should have been Jack. Back home, Sylvia's sad that David's dead. Jack is paraded around like a war hero when in reality he killed his friend. He faces David's mom and dad, who look like that painting of those farmers. Jack gives David's mom his lucky bear and David's war medal. David's mom is distraught and his dad is, well, not that sad for some reason. After their little powwow, Jack meets back up with Mary, where they talk all through the night. He admits he was shit-faced back in Paris when he was talking all that whack about the bubbles. Mary forgives him. Kiss. Yeah! Overall, I enjoyed Wings. I can see it inspired a lot of films that came after it. I mentioned Top Gun Maverick. Maverick and Rooster steal an enemy plane in almost the exact same way as David did in this film. This movie reminded me a lot of Top Gun, actually. I think they drew heavily off this film when creating those two films. I generally like most movies that I watch. I know a lot of hard work goes into them, so I want to give them the time of day. But when I say I enjoyed this movie, I enjoy it way more than I thought I was going to. Just because it's a silent film doesn't mean that it's bad. This film was very good. They conveyed a compelling story with little to no dialogue. That's very impressive. Some might say it's more impressive than if they actually had sound. Out of 5 stars, I give Wings a 3.5. It was very good, especially for its time, but measuring up to some of the other films we'll be watching in this series, I think it deserves that 3.5 star rating. That does it for this episode of the Movie Time Machine. I hope you enjoyed your time watching this video. If you did, leave a comment and a like. If you really liked it, please subscribe. I want to make these kinds of videos full time, and the only way I can do that is if you subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next episode where we'll be watching Anora. Peace out.